So back in Substance Painter yet again, we can come in here and we can start to make these textures a little bit more detailed. So I'm going to start with the paint here. I want to put some paint chips into this. So we just close our other files and I just want to go to our paint one and open that. And we've got our paint base metal here. And I want to put a metal underneath this actually. So I'm just going to add a new fill layer and plot that underneath. And then that fill layer I'm just going to make metallic. And give a little bit more roughness. I'm just going to hide the top one first, so I just want to see what this looks like. I don't want it to be too rough actually, kind of matte. And then I'm going to add another fill layer on top of this. So this is going to be under metal, and this is going to be under metal rough. For this rough here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all the other material other than the rough, and then I'm just going to set this roughness to maybe a little bit shinier than the underlying metal. Okay, so this gives a shiny patina on top, and I'm going to right click this and I'm going to add a black mask. Okay, so that'll then disappear again, but then I'm going to bring it back in just in portions by right clicking that black mask and adding a fill, and then in that fill I'm going to find a nice grunge. So we just scroll down a little bit further. There's loads of different grunges just past these procedural ones, and I just want a scratched metal. Scratch is dirty, that will do. So you can see that instantly pop in there. So we can mess around with the balance and the contrast of that. Okay, I'm happy with that because we're not really going to be able to see it that much. So I can put the paint back in over there, and then I can add a black mask to the paint, or if I want to make the paint a little bit more interesting, what I can do is just add a new layer and put the paint in that. I'm going to put this as paint color. Okay, and now this is masked already in this, so I don't have to do anything else with that. And what I'm going to do is just duplicate this, and I want a kind of worn part of it, so I'm just going to make this a lighter color. And then I'm going to add a black mask to that lighter colour because I want to mask it out to show the darker colour. And in that black mask I'm going to add a generator, and then I'm going to use a mask editor generator because it's my favourite one. And then I just want to come down to the curvature here, and I want to just open up that curvature and mess around with this. Now your curvature will do 90% of all the work. I mean, that is your main one that you want to look at when looking at the mask generators. It's the one that detects the curves as well as the flat faces. So you can see straight away we've got this kind of lighter colour coming to the edges. So I'm just going to change some of the larger ones here up. Increase the contrast just a little bit. So we've got like this kind of softness to the edge of these panels, and I might even just increase the brightness of that colour as well, just a little bit. And then I'm going to go back into that mask, go back into that mask editor, and now I want to break this curvature up a little bit. So we set our curvature, we set where the actual mask will fade to and from, and now we can input a texture into here. So I'm going to go to this texture, and in texture slot 1 I'm going to click it, and then again I'm going to go find something grungy. Pretty much anything will do, just something with a lot of breakup. So I think I'll just go with that one. And then once that's imported into there, we can come up here and we've got these two texture options here. So we've only got one texture plugged in, which is this first texture. So I can open up that. And then I want to go to the blending mode, and at the moment it's overlay, but we want to actually have it remove. So I'm going to go to subtract, and then just come down underneath this. I'm going to turn a texture opacity up. So that's how much. So you can see that texture now starting to subtract some of that mask from that curvature back out, and just break it up a little bit. And I also want to turn the scale up here, so I'm going to check 2 in here to make that a little bit more dense. Maybe I'll go for 4. And then I'm just going to mess around with the contrast in here. So I don't think that one's grainy enough, so I'm going to come back down to the texture, and I'm going to find something a little bit more granular. That's a little bit better. I'm going to turn the scale up at that as well. Put that on 6. And back down in texture, just change the balance. And once I've got something I'm happy with, I can come back in here and I'm just going to adjust that colour down again a little bit so it's not quite as strong. Okay, and then so now we've got our paint colour here. I'm going to add a new map to the top of this, and this is going to be paint rough, and again I want to get rid of everything but roughness. And I want to put a black mask on this now, and the roughness I'm going to set to anything really, so I can see what's happening. I'm going to add a fill to this, and again I want some sort of grainy surface to this. And we can set the scale to, say, try 10. No, that's too small. Try 5. And then once I've got that on there, I can come here and I can change it from base color to roughness, and then just change the opacity of that roughness down here so it's not quite so strong. And this might need some tweaking after we've been through UE4 to see what it actually looks like in scene. Turn that down, and then the base paint, we can go to the roughness here and turn that up. And then I also might come to this paint rough and just add the tiniest amount of height. So we just click on the base of that and turn on height, and then just ever so slightly, just the tiniest amount. You really don't want much when you come into using this kind of height on flat textures, else it'll start to look very gamey. So I do feel like it could use another overall grunge on this. Some tight, like paint stippled kind of feel to it, but that'll do for now. So we can collapse that painted metal. So inside our painted metal here, we open this up, we've got our paint color, and then we've got our underlying metal. So the paint color is another map, because what we can do is we can click this paint color, and we can add a black mask, and then we can add some sort of edge breakup. Now we actually have in Smart Masks, we've got a good one called Paint Chips. So if we just look, we've got like Paint Old here, which is nice edge damage, and then we've got all these kind of edge scratches and stuff like that. So I'm going to go for, I just want something subtle, so I'm going to go for gun edges here, which is like a chipped paint. And I'm going to grab that and drop it on that black mask. And we can also go back to our base color now, we're still stuck on roughness there. So yeah, black mask there, and you can see it's getting them edges, but it's the wrong way around. So if we click on that mask editor, we can go to find a global invert. So we've got invert at the top there. If we change that, we can switch it around so that the metal of the edges is just showing through. Now we want to be careful we don't have anything too uniform, so if you have to do it by hand, it's a good idea to paint out some so it's not too evenly distributed. But this has got quite good breakup actually, so I don't think there's much needs to be done to this. You can change the balance of it to turn it up and down. I might just turn it a little bit up so we get some scratches on the surface here. And I'm going to leave it at that for now and just see how that looks in UE4. And I'm going to move on to the next one. So in plastic here, don't really want to do too much to this. I just want to add a little bit of bump to it. So within this folder, I'm going to add another layer, and I'm just going to add a height to it, and then add a black mask, then add a fill. And in that fill, I'm just going to find something speckled, evenly distributed, something like cells, but more even in tone. So I'll kind of try this Gaussian. And now we can go back to that layer and just turn that height up a little bit. Now the Gaussian blur is way too big at the moment, the Gaussian noise, sorry, so we can scale it up. Scale up to like 20, or even more than that. Put it on 50. Maybe just make it a little bit rougher. Okay, that's all I'm going to do for that now. It's such a small piece. I don't want to spend too long on that. Now for the chrome, I just want another roughness map on top of the chrome and maybe a slight edge detail. Although, no, I think I'll leave it at just a roughness map. So again, new layer, nothing but roughness. And I'm going to turn the roughness down a bit. And then again, add a black mask, and to that mask add a fill, and in that fill just find a nice metal scratched again. We can increase the tiling of that. And the balance. And again, do the same for the dark metal, except this time I'm going to have some edge scratches to that dark metal. So let's duplicate this, and again I'm going to make it slightly lighter, and then I'm going to see if I can find a nice damaged edge here. And just nip some of them edges in. Make them edges a little bit rougher than the base. And then again, I'm going to put another layer on top of this with nothing but roughness, and add a black mask. And then add a fill to that. So I put the fill on the wrong layer, just need to make sure that fill is on the black mask. So when you add a fill to a mask, you should only get the grayscale slot. And then I just want to reduce that overall, so I'm just going to grab the roughness there, turn the opacity down so it's not too strong. And seeing as all these decals are only on chrome things at the moment, I'm just going to make this simpler by adding these decals to the chrome section. So I'm just going to hide that metal decals, go to the chrome here, go to color selection and select that stuff. That way they're all done and I don't need to do any more on this. And then I'm going to make another layer and call it dirt, and I just want an overall dirt on this, so I'm going to add a fill to that, and in that fill I'm going to make like a brownish matte dirt. And then I'm going to see if we've got anything here, maybe dusk occlusion. And so that should just be picking up some of those details in the corners. I might need to make that a little bit darker. Okay, and last but not least, we've got this screen here. So let's go into here. We need to add a fill there. So drag that into the screen. Okay, what we can do is we can actually make this just a base color, a flat base color, and make it black. And in this screen we can turn the color off so we can have that as just the roughness. So we can put something in between there now to represent the colors. So I'm just going to do two things. I'm just going to write the words ATM, and I'm going to do a little bit of emissive as well. I'm also going to go to texture set settings and plus an emissive map. Now if we go back to that layer for our screen base, so this is text white, and this is screen base. So this text white can have we can use a fill. We can also hit emissive here as well. We can make this emissive a nice white. We can turn that down a little bit, we don't want it super bright. And then we can add a black mask to that. And then we can add a fill to that black mask. And in that fill, if we just go to our shelf here and type font, we can get these up. And now we've got loads of different fonts to pick from here. So I'm just going to pick and then I can type in ATM into here and then place that over that screen. So I've just dragged that into the grayscale slot of the fill, and then I'm just going to roughly place that in the middle of the screen. And if you do end up getting it repeating like that, then what you can do, you can come up here and change it from repeat to none, so you just get that text. And I'm going to put that on bold as well. And I'll add another fill and the same text again. Unfortunately, you can't just duplicate a layer. And this time I'm going to write scan chip. And I'm going to put that here a little bit smaller. I want the repeating off on that as well. Now when we do two fills like that, one of them will remove the others, so we can just come up to blending mode here and we can just make that as additive so we can see both at the same time. Okay, and then I'm going to add a paint to this as well, add paint, and then I'm going to go to alphas and find a nice paint. So we've got a paintbrush up here and we can get rid of the alpha from that. And then we can find a nice shape in here, or you can make your own in Photoshop. So I'm going to go for something like this. And now you can see I've got that alpha on my brush, so I'll just make this bigger. Can do this chip scanning area. See what else we've got. So that'll do for that. And then just to make it a little bit nicer, I'm going to add a second color to this. So I'm going to duplicate this layer, delete the other ones here, the fills. I'm going to make this color, just change the color of that, change this emissive to some sort of nice color, and then in the black mask add another fill, and then in that fill I want some sort of repeated pattern. So we just scroll through here, there's quite a lot of different things we can pick from. So I think I'm going to go for this one, and then I'm going to scale that and try and get it nice and even across that. And then once I'm happy with that placement, I actually think it should be a bit smaller. Okay, now I want a soft gradient to this, so I'm going to add another fill, and I'm going to find a gradient. The gradients aren't great in Substance Painter, but there is a few of them, so we'll go for linear gradient 2 and see if we can get that looking quite nice. So we place this over the top here, and what we want to do, we want actually to change this to subtract. Get that over there. think that's the best we're going to get from this. And then what we can do is go to emissive here and just turn that intensity of that background colour down overall. So next, just make sure that we've got a layer on top with the roughness set to nice and bright. Really reflective. And then let's duplicate this. Let's just do so screen rough. And if we duplicate this, we can do a dirt layer. So duplicate this and make it less rough. And then do this as dirt. We can add a black mask to this. And then we can add a fill. And then find one of the grunge maps that has lots of fingerprints on it. And then we can increase the tiling of this. Now we've got a nice smudgy screen. Okay, and that just about does it for the materials on this. So now you can either bake out this and test it, or if you go to the next video, we'll add some sticker decals and some graffiti to this.